Hello there in YouTube land. This is Jordan from jpcopenphoto.com, and today I'm going to talk to you about wedding photography. Now, wedding photography. There are important things to know about wedding photography. The most important thing to know about wedding photography is how to take clear, precise pictures every time. This is not something that you can do and mess up and then come back later and say, well, I'll do it next time, because these people are most likely going to pay a good amount of money for you to come and take pictures at their wedding, and what they want is they want the photographs of all the key moments. So if you are missing key moments, then chances are you won't get very far in wedding photography. If you do not know how to use your camera, chances are that you won't be a very good wedding photographer. If you go back into the previous videos I've uploaded to YouTube, then you will know a little bit more about how to use your camera if you paid attention to the video. Certain things you need in wedding photography. First, you need a DSLR camera. I have a Sony Alpha 500 camera that works fine for me. Important tips about wedding photography. Important things to know about wedding photography are, when doing wedding photography, you have to understand that it is very important that you get the key moments. And it is impossible to get these key moments if your camera is on the automatic mode. So the first thing you're going to have to do is take your camera off of the automatic mode. If you use your camera on automatic, I guarantee you will not get the pictures that you desire or that the customer desires, and you might get sued. So take the camera off automatic and put it on manual. If you do not know how to use your camera on manual, then do not attempt wedding photography. The reason why you need to use your camera on manual is because the settings are going to be very important. Okay, for instance, if you're going into a chapel that doesn't allow you to use an on-camera flash for your photography, then you're going to have a difficult time, because not all chapels are well lit, and not a lot of preachers and wedding planners and brides and grooms understand the importance of lighting. So you will need one of these. Okay? When I shoot wedding photography, if I'm in a chapel, the first thing I do when I walk into a room or when I walk into the chapel is I get my exposure correct. I do that by turning my camera on manual and finding the correct exposure. If you do not know how to do that, then you can view my previous videos, learn how to use your camera on manual, and it will make your job a whole lot easier. Like I said, what I'll do is I'll walk in a chapel and I'll get my correct exposure. I usually do this, if I'm allowed to use flash photography during the wedding, I usually do this by bouncing the flash off of the roof, off of the ceiling of the chapel, if it's low enough and if it's reflective enough. If it's not low enough and not reflective enough, then you might have to point the flash directly at your subjects, which I really do not like to do a lot, because I do not like the look of the shadow in the background. So, like I said, what I usually like to do is bounce the flash off of the ceiling. So what I'll do is I'll go into the chapel, I'll connect my flash, and then I'll take a couple test shots. It's important to get to the chapel at least 15. I get there like a half an hour before the wedding, before the ceremony starts. But you have to be there at least 15 minutes before the ceremony starts to get your exposure correct, to make sure you have all your gear lined up, and to make sure that everything is in proper working order before you start to take the photographs and before the ceremony starts. Because the last thing you want to do is start to shoot and something malfunctions or something like that. So I'll walk into a chapel, I'll get my exposure correct, And getting your exposure correct, shooting on manual mode, allows you to just shoot away. For instance, if I walk into a chapel and I have my flash pointed at the ceiling and I'm photographing, I can use the same exposure every time I press the shutter. That makes it a lot easier for me if, say, there's a lot of stuff going on, which 90% of the time there is in weddings. It makes it a lot easier to capture every single moment, because the last thing you want to do is be playing with your settings while the wedding is happening, while the wedding is taking place. Important photos. Important photos would be the kiss, the rings. For instance, last wedding I had, they had a sand, I don't know what you call it, one of the sand things where you put the sand, it was a signification. It was supposed to signify the marriage by the sand mixing together and that kind of stuff. So these are the kind of pictures that you want to capture at a wedding. The best way to capture these is you have to be preemptive. You have to have some sort of perception of what's going to happen next in the wedding. If you have no perception of what's going to happen next in the wedding, you're going to be out of place and you're going to miss important photographs. For instance, at one wedding I did, I was not ready in time and the bride came storming down the aisle kind of quickly. So I was behind the bride as she came down the aisle. Ruined that moment. Okay? Luckily, I'm a good enough photographer that I was able to capture the rest of the wedding in detail, so that one moment really wasn't missed all that much. Even though they would have liked to have that picture, after they've seen the rest of the pictures, they were kind of more forgiving because they understand that the rest of the pictures were on point, clear, precise. All the moments were captured.